That's all right. I'm gonna pause the show. I found the remote, so it didn't take long. Yes, ma'am. Matter of fact, I'm real glad to be here. The issue that I've had ever since before Natalie died was that I haven't had any money. I mean, everywhere I go, people take care of me. I literally can't take care of myself. People don't understand. Yes, ma'am. Eric's still all fucked up on meth. Yes, ma'am. I used to go ahead. Yes, ma'am. It is hard. And I don't know because I never got onto it. For me, it was alcohol, but I do. And then they're not understanding. They don't understand the frustration, and you're a villain because you're freaking out. Yeah, I get that. I keep worrying about Monkey, and I keep worrying about Rabbit. I worry about all you guys. Yes, ma'am. I don't have very many friends that aren't on substances, you know? I'm pretty much it. See, that's the thing when you're coming down from meth, like you have to keep your mind busy. You have to. If you don't, like Desiree, she was at. I was able to get an apartment for about a month in 2018. Des was trying to get clean, and I just wasn't there enough, so she was just sitting there bored in my apartment. And then you have to be able to stay away from the people that are on it, because first of all, if they're on it, then you're going to want to be on it. And then second, you feel left out because like they won't want to be around you because you're not on it. They get all paranoid. I got lucky. I never got strung out on that shit. Yeah, but no. I mean, on the one hand, they've been stealing a lot of people's kids, but on the other hand, like that can affect your kid for life. I mean, the yep. Well, you remember Leah Plunkett? Yeah, she said she doesn't know if her son's actually got Asperger's or if it was because he got into uh, a bag of mushrooms when he was like 2 or 3. So it's one of those things where if and meth is even worse, you know. Like hallucinogens at that age will fuck your head up for life. But I mean, there's a lot of places where I've been. Their kids have permanent brain damage just from crawling around in a house where people are smoking. Plus, I mean, Boulder was like the last place that I knew of that wasn't completely saturated in meth. And then when the Juggalos came through, like everybody was on it. Actually, the Juggalos, they brought in a lot more heroin than anything else. Yes, ma'am. I've been in contact with a few people that are trying to sober up right now, and it's like I was real good at helping people out when I was there, but I don't get to be there anymore. I can't go there without having people assault me and call me a child molester and a rapist and a murderer and all sorts of fucked up shit. So, what are your plans? Yeah, they might. I mean, you're a mom and you're an addict and you have court stuff, so that does help out. I mean, if you were sober and didn't have court stuff, they don't have very many programs to help. Most of the guys that I know, most of the women too that I know that got into housing, it's either because they got busted or they got kids. Like Vic, for example, shit, he works for the state now. You remember how fucked up he was? Well, sobriety is a tough thing when you've been using for a while, you know? I mean, that's the thing that I worry about Eric. Most of my friends are strung out on drugs, and their idea of helping somebody is to feed them a bunch of Facebook memes. That shit pisses me off to no end. Like, yeah, I don't need a Facebook meme. I need some actual support. I miss the hell out of Monkey too. Well, at least he's trying to get some sleep. Fuck, I can't find my damn lighter. I just spent like 10 minutes trying to find enough cigarette butts to roll into a cigarette, and all right, I got my lighter though. Chapel, Nebraska. Yeah, I can't go to Colorado. Haven't been able to for a while. I keep trying to get the evidence for my court dates, but the court dates that are the most fucked up are the ones where the public pretenders didn't do their jobs, and they've been going out of their way not to do anything. I've been trying to get my court paperwork from Arapahoe County for over a year. The public pretender that I needed to take to court, she was allowed to move on. I mean, that's the most fucked up thing. It's like when Officer Lolatai was assaulting that dude in the Denver jail. Denver let him go, but they didn't press charges against him, and as a result, he got to go do that shit in Boulder. People keep giving me advice, but all these people that are all fucked up on drugs, like they don't give good advice. They spout Facebook memes at me and think that's advice. Or they want to tell me, if you tried going to see a therapist? Like, yeah, fuck yes, I've gone to see a therapist. I was seeing three of them when Natalie died, right before Natalie died. They're all keeping their yap shut because for them, when I told them about the abuse that I was going through and the threats and the harassment, like basically all they did was take taxpayer money. When the law, the way that it's written both in Nebraska and in Colorado, like when I told them about the abuse I was going through, they're obligated to call the cops and fucking do something about it. Shit. The biggest thing right now is like I don't even like smoking weed. I prefer being sober, but I just get so damn stressed out, and literally that's the only thing that helps me out with the social aspect. So if I have to go out in public, especially here in Chapel, like people don't understand that like as soon as those rumors hit the news, I can't walk down the street in Chapel, Nebraska without people threatening me. And I can't go to the cops because they won't do their fucking jobs. They're more likely to fucking ship me off because I'm trying to take them to court too. Of course, the way you called it sounded to me like you needed somebody to talk to. Go ahead and talk. I'm listening. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. What kind of resources do you guys have for now? No family support? There's a lot of people going through that right now. Our parents were the drug generation. I mean, what the hell were we supposed to learn from them other than how to use drugs? Of course, the good thing about that is that we learned how to talk shit and how to beat people up. Eric, I guess that's where I got lucky. Most of my youth I spent in the system taking classes on how to cope with that shit. Of course, most of that stuff ends up being bullshit, like the way they tell you to deal with bullies. First, you're supposed to go to your bully and ask him to stop and tell them how you feel. What a fucking crock of shit, right? And then you're supposed to go to an authority figure like your parents or a teacher or the police. Yep, you fucking narc. Yeah, that goes over well. That'll get your ass beat twice as bad. And then after that, you're supposed to go get your friends. You're supposed to walk in pairs. Like, fuck, who's got time for that? Most of my friends got fucking went off on a drug binge and got pregnant, or got all drunk and pregnant. And they got kids. They're not really interested in spending time with me, even if it does keep me safe. Of course, I did get to learn a lot of statistics growing up there too. I mean, a lot of the coping mechanisms that they teach you, they do work temporarily. I mean, they're all right band-aids for until you get a decent support network. But if you don't have one, you don't have one, and that just makes you easy to victimize. So, do you have any idea what they're planning on doing with you on Thursday? Fuck Broomfield. That's Adams County. You're dealing with two of the most crooked counties in Colorado. Does PACE help you out with housing at all? Yes, ma'am. Having to worry about the police giving you a fucking expensive ass ticket for using a goddamn blanket. And then you want to get a job, but you can't get a job because you're spending all your time trying to come up with the money and do the community service for them, so you don't end up spending 3 days in jail. Yep. That's something most people don't understand about homelessness. Like, they live with their mommies and daddies. They get a summer job and they get a vehicle, and they're like, oh, well, I did this all by myself. And it's like, no, you fucking didn't. When I was in high school, I did not live with my parents, and I still had a job, and I made sure my little brother and sister had food. That's where my money went. I didn't get to buy a summer vehicle. But I know they shut down a lot of the programs there in Boulder. I heard they shut down Boho. Do they still have any of the churches that let people sleep there, or is it just the shelter now? Holy fuck. Plus, it's like completely on the other side of town from all the services. If you gotta go get food, you gotta walk all the way down to Pearl Street. If you're trying to apply for uh, disability, or you're trying to get into housing, you gotta go all the way down to 55th and Arapahoe. and they shut that place down on the one over by Table Mesa down. So like, I guess that one, it's kind of a positive thing they shut that down because that is a really far walk. Yeah. Well, that's the biggest thing that I had a problem with there. Like most of the people that I knew when I was in Boulder they were sober and they had jobs. They just couldn't get unhomeless because they kept getting busted with blankets. Like holy fuck, what a fucked up thing to do. And they left all the druggies alone for the most part, but like those are still human beings, whether they're strung out on alcohol or methamphetamines or heroin, they're still people. And like when Quake froze, well, actually, I guess he choked to death on his own vomit. And then Brian Gray, he froze to death. And like those are people that stick out in my mind every day because like they weren't bad people. They were addicts, but they were good to people. And people are like, you just need to stay away from those kind of people. And I mean, really, nobody else accepted me. Of course, there's also the fact that most of us grew up in foster care, group homes, and shit like that. Yes, ma'am. I'm really hoping, like, when it gets to the point where you have a felony, a lot of times they do end up actually finally doing something. But see, that's the thing is that it never gets to the point that you have those felonies if you have a support network that is actually supportive instead of bullshitters that are like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. Like, well, fuck, you're an alcoholic, though. You're probably not going to do what you said you're going to. And then they call you family. Like, no, you're not family. That's not what family does. Family is stick up for you. I've seen like families here in Chapel, Nebraska, even if their kids are wrong, they're on their kid's side. I'm like, fuck. Even if I'm right, my family don't give a shit. Yeah, me and Rabbit both had to deal with that with our dad. Actually, that's what me and Dad ended up not being on talking terms at all over in 2016 is Eric being all strung out on drugs. I'm like, Eric needs help. I mean, he's your son. You stopped giving a shit about him when he turned 13 or 14, whatever. He's still your son. And people think that just because I'm not all strung out on those drugs that I don't know what it's all about. I'm like, shit, I grew up with drug use for family. I grew up in the system with, kids that were strung out on drugs or the children of parents who were strung out on drugs. And then I get out on the streets and I get to meet a bunch of people on drugs. Most of the people that I knew in high school are still on drugs. And most of them have wives and families, and that's the only reason they have a roof over their head. Or husbands and families. But we also have to deal with, there's about 25% of people that are on the streets are actually addicted to drugs, and about 75% are not addicted to drugs. But we get treated like we're all on drugs no matter what. We get treated like we're all that hobo drunk on the corner with the sign begging for stuff, and it's just not the case. Plus, I mean, with the meth, that makes sense. You don't want to get that fucking ticket. You still want to be able to go to work. You still need to function, and you can't be busted by the police fucking sleeping at night, or you end up losing your damn job, and you like fuck. And you got to keep walking. That's the only thing that keep you warm. So how's Monkey handling it? Is he starting to tone down in his old age? Sorta. Yeah, yeah. You spend a little bit too much time with Rabbit. 'It's 2:43 a.m. Yes, ma'am. I'm only 8 miles north of the border. Yep, we're up in Alki country. Actually, a lot of people that I knew in Denver that were all strung out on meth were telling me that they get their methamphetamines from up here in Dual County. I used to know the guy who was manufacturing it. I can't remember his name, but I remember he had a dog named Captain Crunch. Yep, it's all that damn anhydrous ammonia. I mean, there's a lot of it. But yeah, I'm still pretty close. The problem is I don't have a vehicle or an income, and I mean I have crippling panic attacks all the time over everything that happens. So I mean I feel you on that one. Yeah, I do. And then I got stuff I got to do during the day, but I don't get it done because I end up finally crashing out about like 9 a.m. The fucked up thing is I don't even do drugs. Of course, panic attacks don't really come from drug use, they come from stresses. A lot of people try to shove drugs into me like they're going to fix it. I'm like, hey, no, I'm being victimized by the American public because I was never allowed to defend myself. Drugs aren't going to stop people from throwing beer bottles at me when I'm walking down the street. Drugs aren't going to stop people from threatening to kill me. Drugs aren't going to stop people from assaulting me. Drugs aren't going to make the police take a report. And then I got all these people telling me, "Oh, well, you got to do it all by yourself, Sean. You got to man up. You got to man up. You got to do it yourself. You can't depend on nobody." I'm like, "Fuck. Most of you guys are entirely dependent. You're dependent on having somebody else there, and you have to. I mean, that someone else is your safety." There's a lot of women that I know that are with guys that have hit them a few times, and they're like, "Well, I like Joseph, for example, he's hit his girlfriend a couple of different occasions, and she's like, "Well, I stay with him because when I'm not with him, I get victimized more. People see him, and he looks angry, he's scary looking and intimidating looking, and kind of comes across as crazy, and I get victimized less. But when he's not there, that's when people are coming up and wanting to put their hands on me and shit. Like, yeah, I saw that when I was down there, and I still see it. I see that shit here in Chapel, Nebraska. Mm, a fucking on your back. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you for calling me, actually. I was really hoping you would. Somebody's got to be that asshole. At least I'm a sober asshole. Love you, Lori. Tell Monkey I miss him and tell him he's an asshole for me. Good night. I suppose I should hang up, but I'm rolling a cigarette, but I'll do that now. Why? There it is. And X. Not marijuana. It's a cigarette butt. I know a lot of people who are on drugs and they want to quit. They get stressed out. They're really not all that different from Natalie, except Natalie had a little more family support than they did. Natalie had a sister that was pretty much there most of the time for her. Had a lot of fucking jealousy issues, though. Somebody has to be the fucking good guy. And it sucks having to record shit. It sucks that people can't just write the fuck down and take it to the cops. But then there's the fact that it does need documented. I mean, if one of my friends tells me something in good confidence, that's fine and dandy. But then later on, if something fucked up happens because I didn't do anything about it, I mean that fucking kills me. At least if I record it, if they deny it, I got it recorded. Well, that's not admissible in court. It's illegal. I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck if it's illegal. If they say something about one of their predators and then something happens to them, I got the evidence about that predator. Like Natalie with her uncle and her dad, Tim Beeson. At least I saved that shit. Not like it was difficult. You get a message on Facebook and it's saved there because it's on Facebook. I got all the messages from Natalie all saved just because I own Facebook. It's not like I had to drag and paste to save them on Facebook. What I had to do is drag and paste in order to show it to anybody else. If I could, I'd just give a copy and paste link of my YouTube Messenger or my Facebook Messenger and send it directly to the FBI. Like, see, these are, yeah, a lot of them are addicts, but that doesn't mean they're not human beings. And most of them ended up addicts after injuries. Some of those injuries due to police action. A lot of people that I knew out on the streets are veterans, like Ron Cobley and fuck, that guy's a trip. He was one of the most laid back people I knew out there. But like Lori was saying, I mean, shit, you get your stuff stolen all the fucking time. When I say I need a safe place, that's one of the most important things. A safe place is a place where my stuff isn't going to get stolen, like it was in Washington State. And then it's not just homeless people that steal your stuff, the police will steal your stuff too. Junkies will go rooting through the bushes trying to find your stuff, hoping that you got something valuable in there. Tweakers will stay up all night watching where you sleep and where you go so that when you're passed out, they can go fucking sneaking through your bag. And then you got a bunch of stuck up college students want to complain about how bad their lives are. Meanwhile, they go out and do what's called hobo bashing. For entertainment, they go out and they find a homeless person to beat up. Of course, they're a bunch of pussies, so they go looking for a homeless person that's too fucked up to defend themselves. Like, yeah, I can't beat that guy up. He's sober, but that guy's drunk as a fucking skunk. That's the one I'm going to pick on. You have somebody who lives in the house and goes to college steal all your stuff, and you're not allowed to hate everybody who goes to college or everybody that lives in the house. But one homeless person steals your tip jar, even if they're not homeless, even if it's just somebody who's desperate to try to make rent or get fucking formula for their kid, you blame it on the homeless people anyway. And then you don't allow anybody with a backpack in your establishment. You don't like the fact that they stink. They're going to your establishment to pay for something that's overpriced because it's Boulder, Colorado. And they're paying for it so that they can use the internet because their phone's been off for 2 or 3 months and they just need to fill out a job application trying to do it on their phone in your fucking establishment. Excuse me, sir, you can't do that here. I can't do what? There's other people with their phones out. And a lot of these people are fucking destitute. They're not bad people because they're on drugs. I mean, shit. Natalie had a house or had a place. She had some family support, although it's obvious that they supported the guy who raped her a lot more than they supported her. Her mother supported the dudes who beat on her and beat on her. Like, fuck. And it's a fucked up family life for most of us. I mean, we didn't have family. We have nobody in our corners. A lot of people do turn to drugs. There's a lot of people that I know that they tell me how they quit the drugs, but they didn't. My brother, when he was going to get married, and I made that walk all the way from Bozeman, Montana to Boulder, Colorado, that's because he was going to get married to a woman named Angela Kurzmal. And Angela Kurzmal just couldn't stay off the meth, couldn't stop drinking. But you know what? Despite that, when I called Angela Kurzmal and said, hey, Mandy Singer is getting ready to show up from Arizona in the middle of winter. She doesn't have any gear. She needs some gear, despite the fact that Angela couldn't stay off the drugs and couldn't stay off the alcohol. She was still a lot more human being than a lot of the people I knew that were sober and in houses. They're like, dude, don't fucking ask me. I don't know. I got my own shit to worry about. Angela's got her own shit to worry about too, and she still helped Mandy out because I asked. And no, I didn't put Lori's last name on here. It's none of your business what her last name is. The fact is, she wants to get clean. But you need housing first. I mean, without that housing, you're stressed the fuck out. You're stuck out there with the same addicts. You go to the homeless shelter, you know that 25% of the people that are in there are going to be on drugs. And they won't let you in if you're drunk. So if you're drunk, you're more likely to freeze to death anyway. And then on top of that, there's the fact that they're not going to let you in. But then you don't really want them there because there's an increased chance of violence. There's an increased chance of something trivial turning into somebody getting their ass whooped. When Boho was open, at least you could walk those people to Boho, and there was enough homeless people that were aware of the situation, that were level-headed, that they could handle the situation if something broke out. The cops aren't going to do anything fucking useful. They never do. Not here in Chapel, Nebraska. Not anywhere. I mean, I was talking to Rose when I was in high school. I got community service for getting into a fight with Zach Metcalf. And it wasn't much of a fight. He pushed me once. I hit him once. That was about it. I mean, there was some wrestling around a little bit, but that was Zach's first fight. And for my community service, I ended up cleaning up some blood with Rose in the women's cell in the border, or in the Dual County Jail here. Of course, when you get arrested here in Dual County, they take you to Garden County, next county over. It was Sheriff Johnson at the time. But Jim Hayes didn't want to take that guy all the way over to I think it is Garden County. He just beat the hell out of him in the cell. It's not a good place to be homeless. Nowhere in America is. Everybody blames you for everything. Even if you're sober, they assume you're on drugs. The police, if you have a problem with the police, there's nobody to go to. People keep telling me, well, you need to call this place and you need to call that place. And I call those places, nothing happens. And a lot of these people that are relapsing, like I was real good about being there for them when they were having problems. They used to come to me because I was sober. Always. I mean, the worst drug you were going to find me on is marijuana. I don't consider that a drug. A lot of marijuana users don't. A lot of people who don't use marijuana don't consider it a drug. But then there's the fact that you look at what the pills do, the pharmaceuticals, and a lot of people that I've spoken with, them things just make them feel sick. Why are you going to take a pill that makes you too stupid to do what you need to do, makes you feel sick? You have to go to work and work through that. You still don't have housing. I mean, what would you rather do? Would you rather spend $600 a month to get somebody into housing so they can keep their job and hopefully sober up? Or do you want to lock them up in jail for $3,000 a month? $3,600 a month in some places. That shit gets expensive, and that's taxpayer dollars. Meanwhile, we got to siphon out all the money for battered women's shelters. We're siphoning all of that out so that we can lock more people up in the jails and prisons. We got about 80% of the people that are in the jails and prisons nationwide are homeless. And they're not even the largest cross section of people who are locked up. The largest cross section of people who are locked up is people who grew up in the system. The largest cross section of the homeless population is people who grew up in the system. 80 to 85% of the child pornography in the United States of America comes from the system. It specifically comes from foster care system. CPS places these people there. If you got a blonde-haired, blue-eyed girl under the age of 6, you can get up to $1 million for that person. That's human trafficking right there. The jails and prisons are human trafficking. And then you got 75% of the people that are homeless are not on drugs. They're not. But they get punished as if they are, because everybody who's homeless must be on drugs. Just like every Native American must be on alcohol. Just like every black person out there is not willing to get a job because they're collecting a welfare check. And every Mexican out there is out to steal your stuff. And none of those things are actually true. Fuck it.